I'm Kelly Everman, and I'm with Downtown Frankfort. And I wanted to stop by this afternoon just to give you a little bit of information, and as I learn more, I'll come back and visit again. But the state has a new program where communities can apply to be considered cultural districts. And they define that as an area of high concentration of cultural amenities, which we believe at Downtown Frankfort that we are the cultural center of Frankfort. The governor put out a press release a week or so ago announcing this new program that communities can apply for, and then there is a certification process that you have to go through in order to get this designation. DFI would like to take the lead on this. There has to be a lead organization, and then a steering committee needs to be put together that has to include the local government and a nonprofit arts organization. The Grand Theater has agreed that they would love to partner with us on that. There has to be a lead, and then we have to put together a steering committee. And so we're really early into this, but I wanted to come to you today to say we're thrilled about this, and we'd like to take the lead. We've touched base with KCDC, Tourism, and the Chamber, and they're all thrilled that we're taking the lead on it. And they will be part of the steering committee, as well as other organizations in the community. The intent to apply merely is a half page, we'd like to do this. The full application process isn't due until the end of September, we think. That hasn't been announced yet. But the full application requires that the governing body designate downtown as a cultural district. And I'm not really sure what we have to go through or what you'd have to go through as a commission to make that happen, but I just wanted to give you a heads up at the beginning of this that we would love to do this. We hope that you will partner with us in this. It's not going to take any money. It's just going to take a lot of footwork and jumping through some hoops for the application. So I've come tonight to say, will you consider partnering with us on this? We hope you will. And as I learn more, I'll come back and keep you in the loop about it. I will tell you that there is no grant money associated with these cultural districts yet, but the National Endowment for the Arts is likely to have money in the next year, and we know, or we are told, by the governor's office that when some money comes available for the arts, it will go to states who have some communities certified as cultural districts. We think Frankfort is, they've written this application for Frankfort practically, so we feel certain that maybe down the road it may mean we could draw some dollars to Frankfort for the arts. But right now there is no money attached to it, no grant money available. So I just wanted to give that to you, just sort of an outline of it, let you know that's something we'd like to move forward on. We'd love a thumbs up from the City Commission if you feel like that's something we should pursue, and I hope you will. And I thank you for your consideration, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now. I may not have the answer, I'll get back with you if I don't.
Is there any opposition to anyone that would oppose that? I think it sort of defines us, what we're trying to do anyway.
Thumbs up?
It's not
thumbs?
Formal.
Thumbs?
It's not formal, but
thumbs?
Yeah, I don't,
okay.
I don't
and I'll come back at a later date when we will need the designation. And like I said, I don't know what that entails from the commission standpoint,
sure.
But we've got some time to do that. I just wanted to keep you in the loop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other citizens?
Evening, Commissioners, Mayor. I'm Jarrett Bailey, and I'd like to make a couple of comments regarding statements that were attributed to me based on some comments that I have made on the State Journal website over the last month or so, relating to what I perceive is a obligation or a promise to pay payments for KCDC in 2012 and 2013 in the event that they decide they are unable to do so. The comments that I have made on the website were based on what I have read in KRS 91A 9030. I'm not an attorney, don't profess to be one, don't intend to be one. So this is layman's reading. It was mentioned last week that it was a resolution, not a contract, not an agreement. Even the mayor mentioned that, you know, when he was in the General Assembly, that the General Assembly made resolutions that were later upturned by other legislative bodies. I certainly agree with that. Having spent 23 years with the General Assembly, writing budget language, helping draft legislation, I understand what I think a resolution means. And I think over my 23 years in the General Assembly as budget officer and as a budget director, that when a resolution was passed, it was the intent of the General Assembly that that resolution be followed until it was either repealed or amended. So if in fact the resolution that was adopted by the City Commission is an implied or expressed obligation of the city, and the law says, it's a KRS 91A 030, it's not my language, it says no city, agency, or member, director, officer, or employee of a city agency may bind the city in any way, to any extent, beyond the amount of money at the time appropriated for the purpose of the agency. All contracts, agreements, and obligations expressed or implied beyond existing appropriations are void. I don't know how you can consider a resolution not an implied obligation. I would certainly think if I were KCDC and you make that resolution, and in 2012, if I decided I could not make the payment, I want to come to you and say, hey, you passed this resolution in 2011 that you wouldn't make the payment if we can't do it. I think that's an implied obligation. I may be wrong. I'm not an attorney. Again, I think it's very explicit about what it says. I think it's explicit about, I believe it's an implied obligation, and I think it's void to be issued. Another statement I'd like to make is in regard to the surplus account that was mentioned last week. It had gone from 7.1 to 8.3, and now may even go up even higher than that. That's over a 20% increase going into that fund. How many of our city employees have received a 20% increase in the last year, or the last 5 years, or the last 10 years? I think it is unconscionable that you all made a promise, maybe not this particular commission, but the one before, that you need, if we're going to have resolutions, we're going to have obligations that are going to be promised upon. The promise was that after the first of the year, that you would go as a group and find out what money was available, what money was coming into the budget, and if funds were available, you would provide increases for the city employees. That was not done. I will agree, not all of this money is recurring. I will agree, not all it is recurring. But a large portion of it is. And the amount that is recurring needs to go to the employees as it was promised. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any comments here? Commissioner Wilder.
We discussed the KRS 91A .30 last week, and it was. I would like to thank Jerry or Mr. Bailey for bringing that to our attention. And for what it's worth, I can't help but read it the same way he does. It seems to me that resolution was at the very least an implied agreement, if not an implied obligation. And I do still have concerns about whether or not it is valid as such. In regards to the surplus, I think we were all pretty surprised last week to find out that the surplus has grown as much as it has over the last couple of years, especially considering that we've been told for 2 years that we don't have any money and that the budget is very strapped. For what it's worth, we can't really give folks pay increases, out within a current budget cycle, but we have allocated funds for a pay raise this coming fiscal year, and I know lots of folks are looking for us to readdress the compensation policy in general. I know lots of employees are concerned about compensation policy across the board, and particularly longevity pay. And I guess I'd just like to note for everybody's understanding, and I'm sure you do understand this, Mr. Bailey, but longevity pay runs in 3-year cycles, which is to say that employees receive longevity increases every 3 years. And so it's always been the practice of the commission to treat longevity pay in 3-year cycles. So when longevity pay was phased out by the previous commission 2 years ago, it wasn't ended immediately. It just went from 3% to 1% for the duration of one cycle, and then the idea was for it to be phased out at the end of that cycle. And we're 2 years into that cycle, and we're about to enter the third year of that longevity cycle. My point being that that is something I hope the commission addresses and looks into, but it's something we're not really in a position to address until we get to the next cycle of longevity pay. So when it's set to expire next year, that's when it would be appropriate for us to set in place a different longevity system, if anything. But that's not something for us to be discussing within the context of this upcoming budget cycle. But I do agree that is something that we need to start talking about not long after we get this budget passed, in anticipation of the next budget cycle.
Okay, any other commissioner want to comment? Okay, thank you.
I would like to make a comment.
All right, sir.
I guess I need to start by saying, are you all aware of who I am?
No, just state the name and for the record there.
Okay. Well, my name is Jacob Coley. I'm actually employed with the Kentucky Department of Revenue, so I am a state employee. I'm a state employee.
State employee, okay.
Yeah. You hear me?
I have a hearing loss. I'm not trying to be smart.
I can come down there.
No, you
It's
stay
okay.
there. I'm not trying to be smart. I'm just trying to hear.
Okay.
Well,
Well, I'm saying I can come down there.
I would hope that you would.
I want you to hear me.
I would hope that I will be patient and expect you. I don't like.
Okay. I'm
that,
also.
I don't. I just don't. I want you to know I don't approve of that address. Okay.
Okay.
So you go ahead and make your comments.
Okay, again, I'm just trying to state that I am an employee of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So I'm limited in certain capacities to which I can speak. I'm also a resident of Franklin County, which makes me obligated in certain sense as a Commonwealth. Thank God we're not a state. You can pull that up in your statutes, I suppose, up there too. There are certain things I want to make aware that I brought up to you all as your auditor about a couple of years ago, and I just wanted to follow up to see what was done on those. This was something you all had passed me on to. It was, I guess something that just maybe needs to be brought up as a fact. We'll get to that. First thing, it was like kind of a way to cut budget. A couple of years ago, I believe our organization, the entity I worked with at the time, was a Charles T. Mitchell Company. I'm pretty sure I worked on the fixed asset reports, and we addressed certain issues to where certain monies could be saved by not necessarily, well, let's say you buy a cruiser and you take a laptop that goes in the cruiser. Well, instead of taking the laptop and putting it towards the whole cost of the vehicle and depreciating it over the life of it, you actually just recognize that as an expense right then on your books. You didn't have a threshold necessarily, or maybe you did, I don't really remember. I was just following up to see if that was ever adjusted, if there was any leniency that we could maybe move that, to where we're starting to follow in accordance with GAAP.
GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles.
That would be correct.